Well guys, this is going to be a short review. I didn't want it to be, but I just hate this paddle. Stay tuned to find out why. And before we get into this, here's just a new shirt we're working on. Gonna mess with it a little longer, just make sure the quality holds up, but probably put this on the store soon. So if you guys are interested, let me know in a comment down below. The price of the 005 is surprisingly $222, and if you use code ADV-PB Studio at checkout, you will receive a $30 digital gift card towards your next order. It comes in three shapes, the Invicta, Epic, and S2, which is great to see since the 006 only came in the Tour option. It's a 16mm edgeless paddle, polymer core, swing weight of 120 on the Invicta and 107 on the Epic, weight range of 7.7 to 8.1 ounces, grip circumference of 4.25 inches, and they all feature an octagon handle, fiberglass face, and foam injection. The 005 is marked as assembled in USA rather than made in the USA, so if that's important to you, keep that in mind, and it also comes with a 2-year warranty. One interesting note on the Invicta shape is that Selkirk has reverted back to the original handle length instead of using the modified longer handle version that they were testing on the 003. I'm honestly disappointed to see this because I thought the longer handle on the modified 003 was better for the paddle. So if you were banking on that handle being a part of the 005, it unfortunately isn't. One side note a bunch of you might be wondering is, where's the 004? I talked to Selkirk and they said it's currently being reworked from the original one that they tried to produce, and there's no current timeline of when that one can be expected. It isn't often I have to say this anymore, but I'm actually underwhelmed by the spin on the 005. Is it bad? No, but is it great? Definitely not. Specifically on serves, I found myself taking a lot of power off because I couldn't generate the topspin that I'm used to generating with raw carbon fiber paddles. I also noticed that under the microscope that 3 of my 005s looked like they did not have significant amounts of texture applied to the face when compared to something like a Power Air or 003. It's not clear to me whether or not this is the intended amount of texture or if mine were lower than they should have been. My hunch is intentional considering 3 out of 3 paddles were like this. My Invicta 005 got 1449 RPM and my Epic was 1621 RPM. After comparing the 006 with the 005, it's a night and day difference if you're comparing spin or just really any top tier spin paddle on the market. Overall, I would describe the spin as disappointing for a paddle that's $222. I've just come to expect more. Now, if you're used to paddles that aren't top tier spin, this might not bother you, or if you just don't care about spin at all. The biggest strength of the 005 is that it gravitates towards a power paddle. In fact, if you're familiar with a Power Air, it's highly comparable to one of those, both in power and feel. Despite being thicker, I think the entire face being fiberglass offsets the thickness a bit and brings the power close to the levels of a Power Air. If I had to give my rough estimate, I would say the 005 is at least 70 to 80% the same type of feel and feedback that the Power Air has. If you didn't enjoy the feel of the Power Air, I'd be very surprised if you liked the 005. They both have that similar springy board feel, but the 005 just feels a touch more solid, which is likely due to the swing weight being higher, at least on my Invicta, which is 120 for the 005 and 113 for the Power Air, as well as the 005 just being a thicker paddle at 16mm. However, despite both of those things, I really just don't enjoy the feel of the 005. With all of the paddles on the market right now, this might be one of my least favorite feeling paddles. It's very jarring, especially when you miss-hit, but we'll talk more about that later. When it comes to drives, I think you can get some very solid pace, but you need to be someone who hits with more of a flat stroke. If you hit big, loopy forehands that rely a ton on spin, I don't think you're going to get it from this paddle. I found more of my drives sailing long, and when I used it for singles, I didn't feel like I could hit the angles or passing shots that I've become used to. At the net, the paddle does have solid pop for hand battles, so that's an area that I do think it excels well in, as well as speed ups. Control is an area that this paddle struggles with. Or at least for my style of gameplay it did. There are several things that I think make up a good control paddle. A good sweet spot, high spin, and a plush feel. A good sweet spot can help get the ball where you want even when you hit slightly off center. A plush feel can help absorb pace, and spin can help you drop the ball where you need. The 005 does not have any of those traits, at least relative to many of the high-end paddles on the market currently. The lack of spin made dropping my drives and thirds more difficult, as well as rolls at the net. The poor sweet spot made resets and blocks harder because if I missed off center, the ball died and lost energy worse than other paddles. This paddle also makes it very obvious when you miss the sweet spot. The feedback is unpleasant and very different from the center. Whenever I wasn't fully dialed in, I found myself missing more and being annoyed by the feedback that the paddle gave. Now, of course, that feedback is going to be highly subjective on whether you like it or not, but for me, I didn't. The springy feel also made hitting my blocks at the net harder because they consistently popped up a little bit higher than I'm used to. Now, I recognize that this is not necessarily a con, as this will be relative to the style of paddle you're used to. If you're coming from a power air, most of the traits I just described, minus the spin, are things you're already used to and may not have issues with. I did playtest the Epic version as well because with how much I liked the Scorpius recently, despite not being my ideal shape, I thought that might apply to the 005 Epic shape as well. Unfortunately, it didn't. I found myself being frustrated by the lack of reach, and the sweet spot didn't feel large enough to justify giving that up. The one pro I will give to the Epic shape was the low swing weight. 107 is really fast in the hand, so it would definitely excel at the net for hand battles. One comparison a lot of people are drawing online, mostly from the marketing of the paddle, is that it might be the in-between paddle of a 003 and a Power Air, which makes sense on paper. It's 16mm, it's edgeless, but one of the main differences is that it's entirely fiberglass. I personally don't think it's a hybrid of those two paddles at all. I was a diehard lover of the 003, and I even brought it out one day to compare, and there's nothing they have in common if you ask me. The comparison I would give is that this paddle is at least 70 to 80% the feel of a Power Air. The 005 feels very springy, like a trampoline, much more power than a 003, worse spin, and the feedback off center is worse than a 003 from my perspective. So there really isn't much that I think they have in common between the 003 and the 005. Now, the Power Air and the 005, I do think there's a lot of overlap there. I know this review is shorter than normal, but honestly, I don't have a lot to say, and I have a hard time coming up with redeeming qualities for the 005. I consistently found myself finishing playtesting sessions frustrated with the 005, or sometimes I couldn't even make it through a session because I just didn't like how the paddle played, and the level of my game felt like it was dropping a noticeable amount when using it. I think it lacks many of the elements we have come to expect from good paddles on the market today. Even with the price being $222 instead of $333, it isn't a paddle I would recommend. While this paddle has solid pop and power, I think many other paddles on the market offer those same features, but with a better sweet spot and more pop. If you really wanted a fiberglass poppy paddle, you could check out the 60 Black Diamond, which gets incredible spin and also hits like a truck. The only person I can think to recommend this to would be someone who really enjoys the Power Air, but wanted something that felt slightly more solid feeling. However, you will have to let go of the fantastic spin you were getting with the Power Air. So really, it becomes a trade-off. It isn't that the 005 is the worst paddle ever made. I just think relative to the pricing of other paddles on the market, the spin, and the sweet spot, it falls far short of paddles that are half the price. In the last few months, this was by far the least enjoyable paddle I have play tested, and I'm glad to be done with it. Perhaps I'm being overly harsh here, but these are the feelings I had almost every single time I walked off the court after using it. So if you're a Power Air user, I would recommend demoing it and seeing how you feel about it. But if you already know you don't like the Power Air, I would not consider looking at the 005, as I think they share a lot of similarities. I think the 005 is for someone who is not concerned with money, does not care about spin, does not miss the sweet spot often, likes to play with power, enjoys hand battles at the net, and enjoyed the Power Air. but wanted something that was just a little bit thicker. If you don't fit that description, you should demo the paddle before you order it, because I really don't know that you'll like it if you didn't like the Power Air. Just remember though, I'm only one person. I would highly encourage you to check out other reviews and play test the paddle to come to your own conclusion, and then decide if you feel the same way I do. There will inevitably be people who think this paddle is incredible. I'm just not personally one of them. So there you guys go. Those are my thoughts on the Selkirk Labs Project 005. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.